So Albuquerque fire officials are investigating what led to a fire that killed a 15-year-old young brother while the race soldiers were having a standoff with a suspect in a southeast Albuquerque neighborhood. Now, as I said, the Albuquerque Police Department said they were pursuing 27-year-old Quant Kelly for an armed carjacking. It's a vehicle theft and probation violation. Kelly barricaded himself in the house, and police said they opted to use powder and smoke irritants when all other tactics failed. So a fire later erupted. Now, Kelly fled the home, but Brett Rosano was discovered dead inside. Preliminary results of an autopsy of the boy's cause of death as smoke inhalation. In other words, the race soldiers caused his death. Now, prosecutors and the homeowners are blaming the Albuquerque Police Department for his death, and the police chief, Harold Medina, has acknowledged the devices used to introduce irritants into the home may have caused the fire. Now, Elizabeth Fields told Albuquerque Journal that her sister, Sandra Coleman, owns the home and said that had been left in charred shambles after July 6th standoff. Now, authorities said Rosano had followed Kelly into the home. Fields said two young guys that were visiting her sister's son when SWAT teams surrounded the house with guns drawn, ordered everyone out and detained many of her relatives in handcuffs. She says, and then they started pulling off the windows, they started removing the doors, they had a machine that ripped up the tree, it said, and so then they started throwing gas bombs, it said, in there. It said the whole house went up in flames. No different than what happened to the brothers and sisters as part of the MOVE movement out there, and we covered that, in the past on our African Diaspora News channel. Now, the police chief said the department's investigative service unit trailed Kelly to the home's front yard where he was spotted with the boy working on a motorcycle, which turned out to be stolen. So authorities said Kelly was also wanted for a questioning in the June 26 shooting death of Leonard Fresquez, an officer-involved shooting on May the 5th, and a recent armed robbery being investigated by the Albuquerque Police Department and the federal law enforcement. Now, police said Kelly fled into the home and barricaded himself inside. And, the boy, as they said before, he followed behind. They said SWAT officers tried to talk Kelly into retreating from the home for several hours. They said with public service announcements and placing a phone in the house to negotiate with Kelly and the young boy. Now, it said the agency used a drone and robots to survey the house and activate powdered irritants. Boy, they're quick to pull out all kinds of drones and robots against black folk. Oh, they always using that kind of technology. And say now the race soldiers said they believe that Kelly opened the back door of the home and lay on his back, but he ignored officers' commands to stand up. And say officers used a noise flash device to try to get him to follow their orders, but Kelly went back inside the home and shut the door. And say Kelly later fled the home. And say when the fire erupted, it said he surrendered and was taken to a nearby hospital with burn injuries. They say a dog also died in the fire. They say Medina said at one point the boy came out of the house and went back inside of his own will. You mean to tell me y'all didn't grab that boy because you didn't want to? They say a woman who identified herself as the boy's mother said she was not mentally, physically, emotionally, financially prepared for the phone call she received about her son's death. So as a mother, you never imagined that you would be attending your child's funeral. Yeah, because that's just out of order. You're not supposed to be burying your children, period. It's supposed to be the other way around, and the Lord bless much later in life. Now, the police chief said the agency collaborated with the community safety department to find a home occupant shelter for 90 days, food, diapers, and other resources, because they burned up people's house doing this sort of thing. I said the city should be buying all of them new homes, not put them up for 90 days. No, cut them checks. Whatever the value of their home was, then that's what you need to give them so they can go buy another home. Y'all did that mess. Now, the SWAT team used a number of he claimed flameless tri-chamber tear gas canisters and round of powder-based chemicals in the home more than an hour before they noticed the smoke. He said that there had been cases in which part of the country where the canisters were igniting fires, but they are supposed to reduce the likelihood of causing a fire. Now, the Albuquerque Fire Department said it would take 2 weeks to complete the investigation. However, witnesses and protesters say the police let the boy die because they knew he was in the home before they tried to flush out the suspect with the canisters. It said one protester held a sign outside the University of New Mexico on July 10th saying, "My question to APD, people told you there was a kid there. Why did you let it burn?" Because the kid was black. That's why they don't care about black kids. It says Fields told reporters that the police department's actions were overkill. Anytime they engage black folk, it's always overkill. You remember Jalen Walker shot him 60 times for running away from them? They say in quote, it said they didn't, it says save a life, they burned down a family home that we can't get back. You said they also, it said we're trying to negotiate. It says 2022. It said these black men that fear the police, you really thought you were going to get them to come out of the house? That's what they said about the situation. But yeah, so a black child died, and they're like, yeah, well, one of them things. And what's going to happen? The city going to eventually cut some checks. You know, I mean, I'm pretty sure Benjamin Crump is going to be there, and why not? I mean, he should be there, and make the city pay. And then they'll be doing it again and again and again and again and again. As I told you before, as long as you live in America, this is a standard operating procedure. The only thing about that is you got to choose what you want to do while living in Babylon with the wickedness that go on here. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this particular story. They burned this child to death. Them race soldiers don't care. They say it's a black child. They can care less what happened. They care more what happened to that German Shepherd dog that they got running around the police department than they do black people.